agree. I agree, yes.
So to build a properly scalable system that still remains secure, your biggest one is actually you gotta know what the scope of your project is and the numbers of people that you're going to be approaching, because you don't want to have overscaling, because then that's not going to be feasible for you, but you don't want to have too little going forward. You've got to know roughly what your numbers are going to be. You can try to be a little bit ambitious if you want, if you're hoping for that kind of thing, but you do have to be realistic in what you're doing. Otherwise, if you're always over-engineering and always overscaling, I feel that's probably not going to be a very good idea for sustainability for your project. And when it comes to security as well, it's just, you got to use the very well-established and well-researched security guidelines that go through the existing authentication and sign-in. And yeah, you got to, unfortunately, it's something that you got to get someone on your team that knows what's going on with security. It's not something that you can just check a box. Okay, we're secure now. You've got to get somebody on there that knows what's going on with your security to make sure it's going right. We take our time to go through with them what kind of content they're putting on, what kind of reach they're trying to get, and we go through with them realistic numbers, realistic ideals of how it's going to look when it is how they want it. And then we will take all of our past experience, because we have experience in all the different facets of OTT, including security and scalability, and using the existing cloud architecture that they should hopefully already be using to put together the best proposal. And obviously your servers need to be able to scale, but there's also the idea of building a scalable project that there's always a bit of flexibility within the code and the way that you have approached building the project. So if you are scaling massive, if there's suddenly a massive spike in your scaling, and you need to bring in 30 more developers, and you need to build and add this feature and that feature, your project needs to be built in such a way that you can also scale the project up without having to rewrite absolutely everything you've done. You need to be able to bring in new people, get them to hit the ground running with your development, and get it so that adding a new feature, you don't need to rewrite 100 other features that you've already done. So everything needs to be built in that kind of approach as well. It is very important that you use the existing frameworks and cloud architecture that's there, which is largely based off the idea of microservices. So you're not running one big code base where if you remove one line of code, it affects absolutely everything in the system. You need to have everything interconnected properly, but also in a sense that everything is very separate from each other and can be switched out, upgraded, changed without impacting the rest of the business.
And that comes with communication as well. So in terms, as soon as you go microservice architecture, the communication in the company is extremely important, because you've got different teams that's working on the same product, and if you don't have the correct communication, then one product or one microservice will outshine the other microservice, and then things doesn't work together anymore. So you need to constantly communicate with each other to see where are they and what do they want eventually at the end of the day.
Way to start would be ensuring that your things like your security and your user management, and I say this just because it's where I mainly go in, but getting the architecture and everything that's running in the back end with the APIs and everything getting all of that up and running so that when the apps and the webs are being built, they have stuff to jump onto and to run with, because it's very difficult to build a front-end service when you actually have nothing to pull data from or to run with and test with. But that is coming from a developer that works on that side of it.
I do agree with that. So in terms of like the website, so if you create something and mock all the data that's needed, so when the correct data comes in, it can be mocked on the front end side. So we can mock everything that's needed, but when the correct data comes in, you can't necessarily say this is what's going to happen. When I say that the back end needs to be done first, it's a very important aspect of web development. So I do agree with you. So the security and all the policies need to be in place first. But what I do say is it all depends on the requirements of the client. So whatever the client needs, that's where we'll go to and then architect a solution for them.
And I suppose it also helps that's why Hooligan development comes in, and we say we've got people who can work on every single facet of what you're working on. So we can come in and we can give you all the app devs, all the front-end devs, all the cloud devs, all the testers that you need, and we can make sure that everything is being built in the right order and being built so that everything just works straight together. We don't have to try and guess what's happening on the other side. But the main issue that we need to make sure we're ready to handle is firstly unexpected spikes, and for that you need to have good auto-scaling policies, you need to have good monitoring systems. Most of the time you need to at least have one or two people on call to jump in and do what needs to be done in terms of spinning up new servers if it's something that's happening immediately. But you also need to have an understanding of where your spikes are likely to come in the future. You can keep an eye on your trends. Most people watch our content at 6 o'clock just as they get home. Okay, so let's prepare some servers to be scaled up at 5:45 so that they're always ready when it happens. So you need to have a good balance of auto-scaling to handle what happens whenever it happens, but it's also very beneficial to have some kind of predetermined schedule coming through.
Communication. That's again.
Yeah.
Going back to the communication. So the user experience, whatever the user needs, first of all, we're trying to minimize all the clicks that the user does. So if we minimize those clicks, the data gets processed on the front end side very quickly, and that's where the communicating to the back end is super important, where we need the correct data in order to have that seamless experience.
Yeah, and then with that, just in terms of the authentication for the security, utilizing existing frameworks that are there, and single sign-on is becoming a big thing that lots of companies are working with. You're signing with Google's and everything that's also OAuth based. All of those things that are already there that make it a lot easier for a user to just go, oh, I don't have to go and enter all of my details a million times. I can just click sign in with Google and they already know, they can sign in and know that they have that authentication. So some big ones would be bots that constantly try and access whatever's happening. That is a very big one. One, because it's just a lot of accessing the system, but also you need to be able to try and figure out how to discern what is a bot and what isn't. And you can't always do IP based or header based because everything's just getting smarter all the time anyway. So getting a smart way, very important thing that comes in. You identify a bot, then you can start blocking them before they make their way too far, and then you don't need to scale as much. But if they find a new way and they just get you again with massive amounts of numbers, then you're scaling because your servers have to be able to handle it, but you're scaling unnecessarily because you're not handling real traffic. So that's also another big part of it.
The more we try to get them out, the more they try to get in. So it's like Wayne said, it's an ever-changing experience. So whatever we learn to get them out, they learn to get in. It's a constant. And that's where we need to keep up with the latest guidelines, with the latest fundamentals, with the latest frameworks and everything. So in order to be kept secure, because it's changing not weekly, it's changing daily.
And that kind of
once the bot has actually hit you, and you can analyze what they're doing, and it's very easy to, after the fact, determine what's a bot or not, and you can throw out a whole lot of data, being reasonably sure that was indeed a bot. The problem that we're trying to do is trying to stop them before they get in, and before they get in too far. I mean, if they have bots that just want to hit the sign-in page a million times, that's not as problematic as you get bots that are trying to hit the sign-in page and sign in and do a forget password and do all of that. So it depends on where you stop them. Because after they come in, it's quite easy to, well, it's not quite easy, it's easier to determine if it's a bot or real traffic. It's trying to get them before they cause too much chaos.
We need to keep up with the latest tech, with the latest news. We need to know whatever's new. So, and if a technology isn't feasible anymore, we need to know that. So we need to be kept up to date with everything. And it's a conscious effort that we have to physically do.
Yeah, and there's lots of the frameworks that can be used. They're often put on their own little conferences or little speeches where people who are building the framework get on and they start speaking about, this is the latest thing that we're doing, this is what we've been working on, here's the latest in security. And then even if you're not using that framework, you can kind of gauge how they're putting together that security, which is then considered the latest security that they're aware of, and we can move that through. So we can just, as I said, keeping up to date with news, but there's lots of articles and lots of places that go, this is the latest thing in security that I found, and you go and read that. So just trying to keep up to date with as much reading as you can. There's a lot, and you're never going to get all of it, but you got to try.
So it's also the frameworks, so like Wayne said, the frameworks are also competing against each other. So when one framework is implementing a new security feature, chances are that the new framework will implement that as well. So if you need to be kept up to date with all of the frameworks that's in your field. So because there's a lot of frameworks, you can't be kept up to date with every single framework. So focus on your field, and then you'll be sorted.
Keep coming back to communication. In terms of keeping up with working with clients, we go in there and it's largely the clients that will say that this is what we need and this is what we're anticipating. I mean, unless we can go on and look at their analytics and say, no, that's not what you need, which is very rare because they'll have their own analysts to do that. We generally go in and we have to just implement their wants and needs in the best way that we know how. So, but it just comes back to communication, making sure that we understand what they want and that we are actually able to implement it in the way that we know best.
And it all comes back to like if it's a startup or not. So a existing company that has its security policies in place, that has everything in place. So we try to keep that up and try to basically just get what they're doing and improve what they're doing. So it doesn't, we can't necessarily say this is the newest and greatest tech that we're going to implement for security purposes, and then this company says no, but we have this already in place. So we can't do that. But with the startup, we'll be like, you know what, this is what we have, this is the latest security, and it will it will change, but it will be secure for your purpose.